Okay, good to go, Renee. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. I'll rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
To the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
welcome everyone. Again, there's seats up front. And I don't know about that table in the back. It seems to draw. So we are short one board member who is on his way. And first item of the agenda, however, is a moment of silence. We lost two town residents since we were here last. Marcina Pratt, 98 years old, lived in Waterville her entire life. She was a Henson, for those of you who knew the Henson family. And I think she was the last of her siblings. So we'll take a moment of silence for her and also for Ron Mawson, who also passed away. While he's not currently a town resident, he lived in Pompey for many, many years. Was actually a former town board member in the 80s, and also very active in the Pompey Hill Fire Department. So if we could have a moment of silence for those two town residents. Thank you. So the first order of business on the agenda is a public hearing on our local law to override the 2024 property tax cap. And I always make sure that Tim keeps me on the right path as far as process. We will waive the reading. I need a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice.
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Board members have the local law. Oh, and usually we have more information that's relevant to the agenda on the website, but we've had problems with our scanner. So we just got fixed today, right? It's yeah. So there's no that some of the items, while they're not on the agenda or on the website now, will be. So check back. My point. Do we need any introduction into this is.
So, do you want me to do
You
a
may.
summary? So, under New York State law, town boards or municipalities are required to adopt budgets that are, and the formula changes every year, and I'm not sure what the formula is this year, but it's usually around 2%. So your budget increase should not be more than 2% unless the town board overrides that property tax provision of general municipal law or real property tax. Once you override it. The difficulty, of course, is most towns have to, because they still don't know at this point what some of their special district charges are going to be, which are also included in the property tax cap, which is a problem for a long time. Really doesn't make sense that special district charges should be part of the property tax cap because they are not general taxes on individuals. They're they're special district fees, not taxes. But the controller's office has determined that they should be part of the property tax cap. If you don't override the property tax cap and you are over 2%, let's call it, somewhere down the line, the controller's office can come back and say, you now need to set aside enough money to cover the cost of you being over the property tax in the year you work, which is going to then have an effect on that budget year in terms of increasing the amount of budget you need to do in that year. So It's always, in my view, a wise move to override the property tax cap. And it must be done by 60% of the.
It's pretty good summary. Thank you. So we have, just as far as budget process, we've held 2 workshops. We've moved our tentative budget to preliminary. And we will address a preliminary budget in the accountant's report. And right now, we are over the tax cap by a little bit, not by a lot, but 3 point something percent. I forget what it is, instead of 2%, but we're not done working on the budget, so there's hope yet. But regardless, the tax, and we have one fire district that is way over the tax cap at 12%, and we don't have a choice but to have to count them in our tax cap assessment. So having said that, are we ready for public hearing? I would make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. One thing I would just say is that one year, I don't think it was last year, we spent more time talking about the budget on the tax override local law than we did when we had the public hearing on the budget itself. So just to know, there is an opportunity when we will be able to post it. The preliminary budget, we didn't even have finalized until I talked to Jim this afternoon. So there was no opportunity to put it up before, but it will be up on the website. So you might want to say, like, give it an opportunity to look at it, and then we'll have the public hearing. Probably we'll schedule that tonight, next time, and then move on from there. So is there anyone who wants to speak about the tax cap override?
So far, nobody signed up, but I don't know.
Veronica, is there anybody on the website? No. Okay. So if there's no one here that's jumping up to say anything, I would entertain a motion to close it.
I'll make a motion to close it. Second.
Bill seconds it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we typically, there's James. No, it's okay. So we typically hold off on a local law, but because we want to hear from the public, but since there seems to be no opposition or whatever, I would suggest perhaps we move to a vote on this and have it. So we're,
Because you override the property tax, doesn't mean you have to be above the 2%. It just simply provides you the security
right.
that, and you might not even know it. That's the problem with the property tax. You might not even know it because the budgeted amount might not be understood until a couple of years, because it's all a matter of.
We've been working pretty hard on it. We're pretty clear on where we're at, I think, and by the way, if it is a 3 point something percent income tax rate raise, if that's 8 cents per thousand. So I don't want people to think it's some horrible extra number, but it might be. This has been a very difficult year because of inflation and just having costs that we don't have any choice but to have, and it is what it is. So,
I just have a question. Deborah Grenier, 2010 Cemetery Road. Is there a limit on the tax override? I mean, can it be 3%? Can it be 8%? I mean, is there a limit?
once you do well, I'll let Tim answer.
No. It's just overriding the property tax.
It can be anything. It could be 3.5%. It could be 10%.
Yeah, and
All this local law does is simply states that the town board by 60% of the vote overrode the state's property tax cap. So whatever the ultimate number is going to be up to the board.
In their hands, how much the taxes go up.
It always is.
All right, thank you.
okay. Well, I would make a motion that we approve or pass the local law. I don't know which number it is at this point, but amending our code, tax levy limit override to allow for us, if necessary, to override the tax cap for 2024.
I'll second.
Any discussion, board members? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, the next thing should have been a public hearing on the short-term rental local. But
Sorry.
our accountant has asked to go as soon as he could because it's his wedding anniversary and it also happens to be our town attorney's wedding anniversary. What are the chances of that? And they're both here, but one of them is going to try and get out and go home and be with his wife.
The one who's been married a lot, last time than the other.
So,
You're still smart, so.
Yeah, that's okay.
Exactly right.
so, he was hoping to get out by 7, so I think if we let you go now, you'll be good.
Okay, first off, preliminary budget. So after 2 budget workshops, we've prepared the tentative budget and we've since moved it to preliminary. We're ready to schedule a public hearing for the preliminary 2024 budget. So request that the town board move to schedule.
Has everybody got the copy that Jim brought tonight, the tentative budget? We'll need a chance to adjust it again after the workshops anyway, so. Would, we should probably check to see what works best for board members as far as, Ann had a suggestion. And Nikki, I don't know if this will work or not, but you probably should, but we need to do, she had a suggestion that instead of doing the normal November board night, which would be the 14th. That we. What? The public hearing has to be held by the Thursday after election day. So that's the 7th. So that limits us because we don't meet until the 14th. So we could either do it the week before, or we maybe could move back the regular town board meeting to the 8th, Wednesday, the 8th, which is the day after election day, and hold a public hearing on the budget then. So I don't know if people, if it's better to do it, it would have to be early in the week prior to November 7th, like October 23rd. So I was looking at it,
October 3rd, there's 3,
24th.
5 Mondays and Tuesdays. And
I know.
so that's always good.
This is an extra meeting before the,
Well, it would be an extra meeting, or we could change the date of the November regular town board meeting from the Tuesday, second Tuesday, which is the 14th, to the 8th, and then there would be one, we'd still be one meeting. Typically, that's what we do. We've done in the past.
When's it gonna be? When does the?
The Thursday after the general election.
Oh, is it the 9th?
Yeah.
Well,
the eighth, so now we gotta go jump up a little more.
what? We have to pass or vote on the budget by the 20th of November. So the only reason to do it earlier is if the board wanted time at all to consider things after the public hearing. But we do have the opportunity, once the public hearing is done, to tweak the budget. We can't tweak it now because we voted on it and it's preliminary and it stays like that until the public hearing. But once that's passed, then if things change, if we get more revenue in, or we get more expenses in, or something goes down, or we eliminate something, we can do that after the public hearing. So what's your pleasure?
If we did it the 8th, we'd have that out. All that information.
Yeah, well, yeah,
So any.
I've been talking, Jim and I've been, we talked about this afternoon too. There's some things in the budget that they're still unknowns, so.
Right.
So what's your pleasure?
When will we have all the information that we need?
It comes in dribs and drabs. I mean, everyone says that we'll have it by the time we need to pass the
But the
budget.
week before that is Halloween, so you got.
Wow,
We do it the.
that's one day.
Let's do
Can we
the.
do it the eighth?
I'm good with the eighth.
Let's do it on Wednesday, November eighth. The public hearing can, that will be we'll change the regular board meeting date till then, so.
Is this room open?
CBA is a
Wait a minute.
Monday,
But wait a
any
minute,
board is a Monday.
is that, as long as it's not Trent's,
The second Wednesday.
that's his court night. Because Ralph is the first and third, and then he's the second and third. Not asking, it's just court night.
So who, it's court night, who's on Mondays?
We can't do Monday of the week of elections because the Board of Elections has been here setting up and they changed the whole.
And now there's 3 voting districts in here.
And there's 3 voting districts in here, at least for the moment.
Let's say the first.
Of November, which is, let me see,
Wednesday. Second.
Can we meet during the day on the eighth?
well, the problem, if it's just for the budget hearing,
What's your?
I can't see changing a board meeting because we don't even know what's going to be on next month to a daytime when most people, I mean, there's a lot of people here. How many people couldn't come during the day if we had a, it would be hard for people.
But Thursday or Friday, second, third, why not hear that?
What about Monday, the 29th? We do have.
Especially Sunday.
30th of month, 30th,
Mondays,
Monday is the 30th,
Monday's the 30th.
Monday.
which is the 5th Friday,
How
or
about-
5th Monday, I'm sorry.
This, I take it this would be just for the public hearing on the budget, so we would end up having 2. We would have to have, that would be a special meeting, right?
You do it in November, it should be with the regular meeting.
Well, we can't because that's a court night for Trent, so that night's not available.
So if you did the public hearing on the 30th, which is a Monday, then you would have held your public hearing, so you would have to worry about the second.
And then we could do.
Then you could do the adoption on the 14th.
All right,
Oh, the 30th.
30th.
so I would move to schedule a hearing on our 2024 preliminary budget for general fund, highway fund, fire districts, SOTS, and all of our special districts, for Monday, November,
October 30th.
I mean, October 30th at, does anybody, what time do you want to start earlier? No?
You're the factor.
Okay, 6:30, James. So Monday. 10:30, so I would make that motion, I can second.
Second.
Bill got it, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, so Nikki, it's a special meeting just for purpose of holding public hearing for the
Got
budget.
it.
Get out of here by 7. It's to figure out.
Figure out a date.
Next,
Next, everybody has, the board members have a copy of the monthly statement of the supervisor for September. Make a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to accept the supervisor's report.
Second.
discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. You guys have not been into that.
Third request that the board make a motion to approve the bank reconciliation for the town supervisor for September 2023.
I'll make a motion to accept the bank reconciliation for the supervisor for September 23.
Go second, do that. You good? Good. All those in, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Fourth, there is one budget modification for the month. This is for account code A8010.11. This is zoning personnel services. This merely increases the budget line item for an increase that was made and approved by the town board back in March of 2023. This will catch up that line item so that we don't go over budget for the year for his planned increase. So request that the board make a motion to approve the increase of his of the zoning personnel services line item and reduce the youth program recreational personnel services. The increase to be $11,100.
So just so everybody's clear, we moved Tim Barrett to salaried with more hours because of the need.
Right.
And that's why we knew we were gonna at some point have to do this.
Yep.
Just waited till we were close.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer that Jim just said.
Diana, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, lastly, we're making good progress against budget for the year. There's not a whole lot of concern at this point, with 3 months left in the year. Interest continues to come in at a pretty good clip. This past month, we brought in $10,472 on an I-class account. Year to date, that's $83,112. I expect that to start to trickle down, as the year comes to a close. We have a lot of expenses coming up and not a whole lot of money coming in. So, I know, this month we were paying for the highway garage roof replacement. That's $208,000. And there's some other larger expenses that are coming due in the next couple of months. So, I'd expect that $10,472 to go down October, November, December. Outside of that, that's all I have. It was a relatively quiet month, expense wise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just missed.
And you'll have the,
Anniversary.
I'll swing by in the morning to grab the vouchers.
Okay, so. This item of business is public hearing on. Create a new section in our town. To regulate the use of short-term rentals in county. So. So, again, I would, make a motion to waive a reading of the legal notice.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. So I thought, and Tim, is it appropriate to do it now or when the public hearing is open? I thought I would just read a little summary of what the law entails. To do it now? Okay. And I just want to say this, we formed a committee not that long ago, back in the spring, well, maybe it was longer than that. Anyway, to address the issue because we'd had complaints from residents about concerns with neighbors who were renting out properties for short-term stays.
Can you speak up a little bit so we can?
Sure, I'm sorry. That's good. Just tell me. Or just go like this.
There are chairs available up front too.
I can't get them home. They don't get table. Anyway, the committee was 6 people, 2 board members, myself and Ann Christmas. 1 planning board member, Kevin Corson, and then 3 town residents, Helen Bailey, I'm going to forget somebody, Nancy Furdock, and
Kevin. Oh, you said Kevin.
no, I said Kevin. Who's the? Adam Scalisi. Thank you. Oh, he was our ECC member. We decided we needed somebody. So it was actually 4 different town officials and 2 two town residents. So, the law is pretty straightforward. The purpose is to ensure the health and safety of places where the public goes. And if you're doing short-term rentals, that means that you're inviting the public into your dwelling. So, we spent a lot of time defining what a dwelling was, what short-term rental meant. And the only thing we're asking through this law, would be to allow, to apply for a permit from the codes officer, before you can operate, a short-term rental. The fee would be determined by the town board, but it would be minimal. We were thinking it's nothing outrageous. We talked about, the law would allow for a 3-year term for a rental, but at the end of that 3-year term, you would be required to renew. It would not be transferable. So somebody can't buy a place and then just assume that they can continue to operate a short-term rental. We set a limit on the number for now. But there is provision in the law to allow for the town board to adjust that based on a number of factors. Yeah. So the number we set was 40. And it wasn't just we picked it out of a hat. We looked at the number of parcels in the town and we took a percentage of them, a low percentage. At the present moment, we only have, I think, that we know of. Over 13 now? Oh, it was 10 before. Okay, so that we know of that exist already. So the application would, it's not going to be onerous. I've already done some research and we pulled some forms from other towns we would just use. The codes officer, once he gets an application, you wouldn't have to provide a formal site plan, just a drawing of what the bedroom situation looked like and what the property consisted of. The codes officer would be given 30 days to decide. There would be some requirements for a short-term rental that would limit the number of people that could be in the rent, depending on the number of bedrooms. And off-street parking would have to be provided for renters. There would have to be owner's rules. And we have a sample set that people could use. Your permit would have to be provided to your neighbors, and they would literally be the neighbors that are within 200 feet of you. So those neighbors to your right, to your left, and across the street. So that kind of thing. And then there's some enforcement provisions. So that is the extent of it. It's not onerous, or at least it doesn't appear to be. But it took us, 5 revisions or so before we felt like this was ready for presentation to the board. So, so I would open the public, to make a motion. Did I already do that? No, I didn't.
No,
But I would make a motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I don't.
Nobody signed up.
Okay, I know that I think every board member got a email from one resident who was suggesting that owner occupied rentals, short-term rentals should be exempted from the law. And then I had another resident who called me today. Just his concern was with enforcement. How are you going to enforce it? And I said, we don't go actively looking. If you have a complaint about something that's going on in your neighborhood, you bring it to the attention of the codes officer who will investigate. So that's how it would work. So I did offer him the opportunity to submit something in writing. There's nothing. Is there anything on the chat? I see nothing. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's considered a short-term rental?
Something less than 30 days,
30 consecutive.
30 consecutive. Yeah, I think.
Sometimes it's hard,
That's a good question, Ivan. I should have had that in mind.
sometimes it's hard to keep it kind
A dwelling which may or may not be inhabited by the owner of record for or immediate family that is rented in whole or part for a period of less than 30 consecutive days to any person or entity. But not including a hotel, motel, and campground or bed and breakfast.
So if you're renting out a place for a few months, this.
That doesn't apply.
That's not-
No. You have a college student that wants to live in your extra bedroom and they're there for 9 months, that's okay. The more long-term renters are not, it would not be, rental situations are not impacted by this. It's
We got
only,
one letter from someone that was concerned about
Yeah.
a few
Yes.
months one, but that wouldn't.
but that
qualify
one,
anyways.
no, 7 to 13 weeks is well beyond what would this law would
Less than 30 days. This
apply
is like
to.
your Airbnbs.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I should say Ivan Fuller was the one who asked the question and he lives on Route 91.
I'm Deborah Grenier.
Yeah.
910 Cemetery Road. Just wondering, what are some of the questions that would be asked on this form, like some of the items?
Well, I haven't, we don't put it together yet, but it would be, it's an application, so it would require you to like prove you own the property. Where did I put that? They would want to know the names of the owners, ways to contact them. If you don't live at the residence, we would want to have a local contact person in the case of an emergency so that somebody could be reached. There would have to be, and this is one thing that that our one email person objected to, was there would have to be proof of a satisfactory inspection. She didn't feel like she wanted her privacy disturbed, but if you're bringing the public into your home, a fire inspection is, it's,
We also.
it was, yeah,
So there's an inspection involved in this process?
just for a fire inspection.
That's done by the building post? or-
It can be done by the building codes officer, but can also be done by anybody that's qualified. So if you want to be an owner that rents out their place, as long as it's somebody that's qualified, it can be done. So I think that's the way yeah. Okay. Name,
She's just letting me know what else is. on.
Richard Margino.
Yeah, so what would make someone qualify for that? A contractor or like a sort of.
They just have to, yeah, they have to be fire inspector. That's where is it here?
License thing.
Yeah. That would be something you should ask the codes officer, because I quite honestly, he would know who is qualified and who's not. You can't just pull in Joe Schmo.
Says for other qualified fire inspector.
So on the town website, is there's gonna be like
There's gonna be the
an
application.
application that the public can see and what they have to do.
Yep,
to get it.
Yep, and as I said, they want a layout of the interior as far as bedrooms go, because you don't want 20 people in a house or residence that can only really sleep so many. So that would have to be provided, but it's not meant to be anything professional. You could draw it yourself as the.
So what's gonna restrict, like the codes, when they look at it, what's gonna restrict, this is not approved, that's approved, is this some?
If you're applicant 41. If you're applicant 41, you are out of luck. But no, seriously, I hear what you're saying. I mean, you have to there's not a lot to prove. You just have to show them what your layout is.
Okay.
And as long as you are going to adhere to the requirements that you only have so many per bedroom, 2 people per bedroom and +2 is the
I
standard.
don't think any of the neighbors would want somebody to throw a party with 100 people next door to their house. That's the problem. Most
Yeah.
people can agree, but somebody's trying to make extra money off their house because they're
Right.
increasing property taxes.
Right.
It's okay if the neighbor Airbnb's a
Right.
house.
Fire inspection could be something as simple as making sure there's active smoke detectors in the house. Making sure there's adequate exits for whoever's in the house, stuff like that.
Nothing popping an exit, stuff like that.
Yeah, they're not going to be going
Not gonna-
to your house with a microscope to find.
Scrutinize other things that they might not.
No, it's only for public, it's only for safety, meant to be for, make sure that, it's really to protect the owner of the property as well, that they had their place inspected, so.
So what else besides this inspection?
Is there any special insurance required or anything?
That, we talked about doing that, but we didn't put it in here because it's really not our responsibility.
I'm just asking.
No, that's fine. That's a good
I'll
question.
pass, I'll.
There's one thing the board is not trying to do, and that's restrict anybody from going ahead and operating these types of short-term rentals.
Yeah.
They only are looking to make it safe for the people renting and for the homeowners. They're not trying to restrict it.
Well, you're restricting the number, only 40.
Well, that's because we have so few already. If you go on any one of the short-term rental sites, you will see that there are many in this big circle, and then right in the middle is the town of Putney, and there's a handful. There's not a handful. There's only a handful. If we saw a run on the, the applications, that could be brought to the board's attention and reconsidered. And it all,
Very easily to be addressed if that was, if you're number 41. I guess you could come before the board and state your case why you think you need to be right and.
It's been more popular over the years go by. It wasn't popular a couple of years ago. It's been very,
Yeah.
very popular, especially like apple picking season.
But, and I don't want to give people ideas. But one of the things we did focus on is the fact that we have a definition in the law about what an amenity is on a property. So an amenity is defined as something other than the dwelling, like a pool, a deck, a barn, a fitness room or whatever, because people are now renting those out for an hour at a time. And it's becoming traffic city in some neighborhoods where, you got this hour for renting out the pool, but then somebody else has the next hour for parties or whatever. So we put amenity in there because that too would be part of the regulation. But we're not looking to make this onerous. We're just looking to make it safe and that it's impactful on neighbors. Okay, so we didn't have anybody talking and then we got a good, so that's good. Anybody else? Since. Yes, sir.
Hey, Emmanuel Polthos, 6922 Frank Long Road. That individual who called, what's the board's position on owner occupied dwellings and short-term rentals? Did you guys, I didn't get a chance to read the law, of course, so maybe it's in there, but what's the
Well,
position?
It's not, there's no exception for that. So if you can rent short-term a room in your house or 2 rooms in your house or whatever. And it's fine. But the law would apply to you the way it's written now. And I can't see eliminating that scenario because it's still an issue of public safety. And really, short-term stays where people that nobody knows are in for the weekend or the week or whatever, and then they're gone. And so I don't know what the board thinks about that, but we all got the email and
Her situation really didn't apply.
It didn't apply.
13 weeks. That's greater than 30 days.
she rents her some rooms to nurses, traveling nurses, but they're here for weeks at a time. And she gets them through the hospital where she works. So it's not,
Furnish Finder.
pardon me?
It's called Furnish Finder.
Oh, okay, yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically it's called a midterm rental.
Yeah.
Like VRBO and Airbnb is short term, less than 30 days, 2 nights or minimum 1 night. But Furnish Finder is a new thing for traveling nurses, professionals. And
So,
that's usually 30 days to 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that this would not apply to her. The only thing would be if she wants to short-term rent, then she would have to try and register with the town and be one of the 40. Right now, I don't think we're gonna have a rush on the town hall. Maybe after this meeting we would, but I don't think so. So I think 40 right now is a good, we all agreed it was a good starting point and subject to change as the future board, I won't be here, but the future board will decide. Yes, Nancy.
Nancy Burdock, Sevier Road. public safety was number one in our consideration when we drafted this, and then the neighbors' peaceful use of their own properties. But I just wanted to point out that we also limited the number for the time being to 40, with the consideration of protecting the nature of our unique communities. When I lived in Hancock, New York, I saw what an overabundance of short-term rentals could do to the community, and it was not pleasant. So that was part of the consideration as well.
And that reminds me, the other thing we were concerned about is we didn't want so many short-term rentals that people that want to live here long-term
Right.
find a place to live.
Cost of housing, correct?
So. Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Jane seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
At this point, we could probably do a simple analysis. Now, a lot of these questions are not going to seem relevant to what we're doing. But because it is a zoning, it's an amendment to the zoning code, we should review the environmental
Impact.
impact of allowing short-term rentals. And that's what I'm talking about here. So if somebody wants to make a motion for self-lead agency for seeker purposes.
I make a motion, we do secret.
No, we have to
Make
make ourselves the lead agency, the town board.
For this
Somebody
local.
else make a motion then.
Make a motion to declare.
There were the lead agency.
That's
That's all.
Make a motion that we become the lead agency for the seeker for the short-term rental.
Thank you.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
So I've reviewed all the questions and I think that it's going to be no to small impact. If it's something, if you believe it's going to be a moderate to large impact, please speak up. Otherwise, the answer will be no to small impact. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Not a small. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land? That's why we have the regulations in place, because it's going to limit the number of people. So we're getting no to small. Does anybody disagree with that? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an existing community?
No.
No to small. Will it impact a critical environmental area? We do not have any designated critical environmental areas in the town. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic, affect the existing infrastructure, mass transit, biking or walkways? Small. Proposed action cause an increase in use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities. Small. Impact on public water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities. Small. Proposed action impair the character, quality of both historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources. Go to small. Proposed action result in an adverse change to the natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna. Go to small. Proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems. Go to small. And the final question is, will proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Go to small. So based on the answers to those 11 questions, I would recommend that the town board issue a negative declaration, meaning that this local law will not have a significant environmental.
I would make a motion. What do you want to, go ahead, Jim.
I'll make a motion that we
Issue a negative.
issue a negative impact. Or seeker.
I would second that. Whatever you said.
I don't know, maybe it's that,
We know what you meant.
whatever you wrote.
And we're issuing a negative deck under.
Any discussion, board members, you all in agreement with this assessment? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So. On our seeker. The only hesitation I have on pursuing this tonight is that I did just get off the phone with somebody before the meeting and tell him he had a chance, he could send in something in writing. So could we hold this vote off just out of courtesy to him?
And it would be helpful to me because I'll prepare.
Perfect.
Resolution.
So we'll put this on.
Incorporating all of what we talked about tonight.
Okay, so we'll vote on November 14th. Okay, and thank you for your input. It's helpful. Okay, and I'm sure this is what most of you are here for. The next item on the agenda is a request for a solar energy overlay zone changed by Pivot Energy for a project on Fleet Road on tax parcel 012.-01-03.1 to allow for a tier 3 solar project. And I saw Gordon, there's Gordon. Are you here with others?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to come up, so we can present, do you need the easel in the back? Would that be helpful or no?
Sure. Sit up.
Yeah,
The site plan that way.
okay. Carl?
Yeah.
You want to bring that up? Do you mind? It's been very useful.
Where do you want to put it?
Typically put it over there in the corner. And try to, we angle it, but it's not always. All of the town board application documents are on the website. So even if you can't see here, you can see them.
Okay, you guys see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Diana, can you see it?
I can see
I mean,
it.
we
Plus,
got the stuff.
plus we have
We have our Bibles here.
Yeah.
If we help us to-
We just tell them what it is and see what it's like.
And just by way of introducing the project, we will at this point, because the applicant has already gone to the planning board with concept site plan review. And there was a vote in September by the planning board. It was a 5-2 vote to recommend this project that based on that it complied with our citing provisions. So Gordon, would you like to introduce yourself? And I think I've seen you before, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm Gordon Woodcock with Pivot Energy. We're the developer requesting the solar energy overlay zone change here with Jake Runner from EDR, who's an environmental and civil engineering consultant, and also Hyde Clark from Young Summer, our council.
He was at planning board.
Yeah. So thanks for having us here tonight. Probably a year ago, I was in front of you all requesting an overlay zone change for a project on Sweet Road Solar. Here again, requesting an overlay zone change for a solar project on Sweet Road. Since then, we've taken the feedback that we received from this board, from the planning board, from landowners and residents in the town of Pompey, both at public hearings and also at an open house we held earlier this year. And we've incorporated that feedback into significant changes to the project that address the concerns that we've heard, primarily related to agricultural issues, visual impacts, as well as some general concerns on site layout and emergency response. So among the permit documents or the application overlay zone application documents we've provided related to the agricultural concerns, there are the site plans themselves. There's an agricultural mitigation area or an easement area, and there's a response from New York State Department of Ag and Markets for the notice of intent process. On the site plan itself, we've shifted the array considerably to the west, moving as much of it as possible out of the farmland cleared by the landowner, Mr. Osikowski, who's previously farmed it, hay and corn, that sort of thing. So we've shifted it to the west into the tree line as much as possible while still respecting the setback from the wetlands that are in that treed area there. That reduced the coverage on that parcel by about 6 acres of farmland. So we reduced the coverage by about 6 acres by making that shift to the west and get as close to the delineated wetlands as we can. Jake and his team were out there mapping the exact wetland boundary so we know where things are exactly. We've also worked with the landowner, Mr. Osikowski, to set aside acreage that's equivalent in quality and size to that being displaced by the project. So while we are planting this site with native pollinator habitat, which provides agricultural and ecological system benefits, while we are going to be grazing this site for vegetation management with sheep, which is an agricultural service itself, we are taking the site out of traditional crop rotation. So we're not suggesting that somebody's going to grow hay or corn underneath the array. To mitigate that removal or that sequestering of acreage, we've set aside additional acreage that can be farmed for the life of the project. So if somebody's looking to lease 20 acres in the town of Pompey, that would have been this acreage, for example, they can find that, and we're going to make sure that they can find that. Finally, the last issue related to agricultural impacts. We consulted with Ag and Markets and got their concurrence that as long as we follow best practices for solar project development in farmland or on farmland, which includes pollinator habitat, sheep grazing, having a decommissioning plan to ensure that the projects return to an original condition when everything's said and done. They agree that this project will not have any material impact on local and regional agricultural resources. On the visual side of things, similar benefit to shifting the array west. We get it away from the property line. We give it away from Sweet Road, where we've heard there's some sensitive visual receptors there. People driving down the road, they're just in land. So in addition to moving the array as far to the west as possible, we've supplemented the vegetative screening around the property line with an additional row of evergreen vegetation. And you can see that in the visual simulations we provided, that there's significant benefit by adding an additional row of screening. So it really does improve the effectiveness of the screening that's already proposed. On the site layout side, we've shifted the array access road in this southern field to the north, hearing from the adjacent landowner that they didn't like the access road down on the property boundary. So we moved it up to where it does bisect the field, but we can keep it at grade to limit any impacts so that acreage can still be farmed. They're not going to interfere with farm or plow equipment that would be running back and forth across the field. And lastly, during one of the public hearings, we heard some questions about emergency response. You know, what happens in an emergency condition, and would we be up for training first responders, which we committed to verbally, but we wanted to go a step farther and commit to that in writing. So the emergency response plan makes that commitment to training first responders if desired. It outlines emergency protocol, and it also establishes points of contact in an emergency situation. So those are some of the big changes that are in that permanent or that overlay zone request package. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gordon, I couldn't tell from the maps. You are 100 feet away from the wetlands?
Over here?
Well, it looks like you get close, but it doesn't look, and I just don't, there wasn't any distance to show that it was 100 feet. So it is,
I don't know for sure if it's 100 feet.
it has to be 100 feet.
Yeah.
For the town law. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it is to the fence boundary, to the array and roads. We can look into that.
I think it's to.
Either way, make sure that it's.
It's definitely to the fence boundary, because I just stopped and think what you were asking me, yeah.
We can confirm that distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you don't know for certain, I would ask that you come back with a definite answer on it. It's important.
It looks like it's 100 feet though. We'll confirm that.
What is a compost filter sock? I have no idea what that was. I looked at it, I see that it must have drainage, preventing it from, and it's in different places but I have no idea, and you probably know what it is, but. Yeah.
So the question. Yeah, so she asked what a compost filter sock is. So as part of.
It's in yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so during construction, there's different mechanisms that are put in place to prevent stormwater runoff to neighboring properties. And make sure that, any water leaving the site is as clean as it is arriving, right? So no turbidity, that's what's that. So some people are familiar with silt fences, which are kind of that black netting that's pounded in the ground. These are play a similar role, but they're kind of a biodegradable webbed material that's filled with like a biodegradable mulch. Compost. So over time, it'll just degrade out. Or it can be removed after construction. That has to be maintained. No, it's just during construction. And then once the site's
So that's temporary.
constructed, it'll be revegetated completely underneath. So stormwater mechanisms necessary.
Where is the, like, you just talked about putting other land aside for farming, where is that supposed to be, or what's?
You know, that's shown in one of the figures. It's just to the west of this site on Mr. Osikowski's property. Down is it on Pratt Falls?
We have two options, 35, 56, 91.
Oh, wait a minute.
Already been put into productive salt farm recently. It was grazing, so I cleaned that all out. That whole side hill and the lower level is now available for the be set aside. There's also, I'm under contract with 41 acres on Price Falls Road, Price Falls Road and Gardner Road. There's an additional 41 acres there.
So, I mean, you're talking way more acre or?
We would set aside 1 acre per acre, which is we do have some options.
Okay.
For example, a preference to 1 acre to another that could be finalized.
There'll be similar soil types.
All right, so there's two possible locations, but it'd be like similar, whatever acre
Right.
it just was.
Right.
One's at 91, the other one's on
Price Falls Road, Gardner Road on the corner.
All right, thank you.
What's the estimated project cost?
Estimated, it'll of course depend on construction start year, right? Construction costs vary. Right now, we're seeing construction costs all in somewhere between $1.80 to $2 per watt. So, $9 to $10 million probably.
And reasonable to assume it's around 90% materials, 10% labor, something like
I'd have to
that.
look at the breakdown, but that's probably right. Yeah, I mean, modules themselves are 40 cents per watt plus, so that's 20% of the cost, right?
$1 in labor, approximately.
Yeah, I can get a more precise breakdown if it's helpful.
And what's the decommissioning bond that you're posting?
We have not gone through that. It would be in consultation with the town council and town's engineer.
That's not a function of the watt?
It is, it's a function of the system size, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, because I know the original proposal was 290,000, is that right?
Yeah, so we go back and revisit that.
This 290 seems very light to me. You'd be able to take this thing down 25 years from now for 290,000.
Yeah, and
Is that reasonable?
I'd have to go back and look at what we proposed and what's in there, but it is a lot easier to pull it out and to put it in.
And there would be an escalator on that cost, so it's 290,000 today's dollars, not $290,000 25 years from now dollars, because we know those aren't the same.
Right.
So there's a annual adjustment. I think we talked about it last month.
Not just
What
the-
exactly?
Contractual inflator of some sort?
Yeah, there's an escalation in the decommissioning security, so that's.
And I think there's.
I'll have to look at the law.
Those two numbers still very big.
And it's reevaluated every 5 years.
Years.
And the engineer comes up with a new number.
And it's an engineer picked by the town, paid for by the developer. That would
That's
make
my
that
recollection.
determination so that we would keep on track with what it costs to decommission, so that isn't but what it would cost today. It wouldn't be the amount today. In
No, I'm more
25 years.
concerned with the differential between.
Yeah, I know.
The labor cost of $1 million versus, 290,000. And escalate the two numbers. They tend to separate over time. I know that we get talked a lot about the environmental benefit and our need to sort of do our part, which is always confusing for me, because I know for me, doing our part, I would define as what's the reduction in the carbon footprint from a proposed project. That's the way I look at it. So for example, if there was a coal burning facility in Manlius and it emitted 1,000 pounds per day, and you guys were gonna come in and put solar panels in, and we were gonna reduce 1,000 pounds per day. To me, that would be a carbon footprint reduction associated with the project. What do you see as the carbon footprint reduction from this project? So that, you know, at least I feel better about what is it that we would be doing as a town in terms of doing our part?
Sure, I'd have to go look at the energy mix specifically for the area and get
'Cause I
you,
think it's primarily nuclear, hydro,
well, yeah, probably a mixed hydro and
neither of which have a carbon footprint. correct?
well, not a carbon footprint, but certainly, you know, every energy source we have has an environmental impact. And I would also argue that diversification, like solar, like wind, add to resiliency. And so distributed energy resources do contribute to resiliency of our utility infrastructure.
Because I think for us, you know, we're oftentimes asked about our need to do our part. And I know that for me, that gets difficult to define.
Sure. I think there is a subjective quantity to it, and but you can measure the environmental impact in any number of ways, not just carbon footprint.
You're gonna graze cheap on this one here.
Yeah, it's our default vegetation management practice. You know, there are times where you might have woody vegetation that requires mechanical removal. But we work with a company actually south of here down in Tompkins County called United Agrivoltaics that manage our grazing operations.
You have grazing operations going on your other ones?
Yes, we do.
How many projects have like you got in New York, or in the area, and go beyond if needed is, but how many projects do you have that you've like completed in the last 5 years, or do you have like this thing now?
Nationwide, you know, hundreds, right? So we're active in all the community solar markets across the state. We also provide behind the meter projects for commercial and industrial companies across the United States. In New York, we have 2 projects slated to get turned on in November, another 2 slated to get turned on in December, and then 2 more slated to get turned on first quarter next year, plus 3 more behind that are in construction.
You don't have any going yet?
So what he means by turned on, it's like they're built, they're constructed. It's just waiting for National Grid to find the pole and flip the switch.
But you don't have any at this point right now that you guys have done in New York already on and going?
That are producing energy and feeding back into the grid, not yet, but next month.
You got 2 of them that you said are about at the point of which, you know, whereabouts in New York?
Those are both actually in Essex County, Ticonderoga, New York, in the Adirondack Park.
I mean, the reason I'm asking this is to be, you know, I mean, you can go all around and find all kinds of solar things. You can find many of them that look awful and in my opinion, have not been done at all right.
I agree.
And we look through this book upside down and backwards with all the things, but and you can find a couple of them that are like, "Ooh, this has been done right." But me personally, I would like to see the ones that you guys have done, I mean, physical, whatever. I'm just saying, I'd like to see the real, the end result of what something you guys have done. It's like, okay, well, we see all this screening and stuff, but
what is it?
you can go anywhere around and find them that have not been screened at all, have been running for quite a while, and they are not.
Yeah, they have barbed wire and base course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that and publicly that there's people don't believe that you're going to do all this stuff.
Yep.
Well, and the sheep you have, nicely, you haven't completed them, you have them going at some other place, because.
We have contracts in place for New York sites and we have grazing operations in other states already.
All right, and they are working and are successful.
Yeah,
it fascinates me and it's good because I think it's a good idea. Do they, how does the sheep work with the pollinator stuff? I'm asking because I want to know for myself, the sheep are going to eat this stuff? Is it like contradicting each other?
Yeah.
The pollinators, but the sheep are going to eat it.
Right.
And animal, I mean, I have livestock, so livestock and electric equipment usually don't mix. So I'm just, you know, it's like, if you have anything that's electrical within range of an animal, it usually gets, you know,
Yeah.
now cheap or pretty low,
We're not talking about goats.
we're not talking about goats.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, I just wonder about how it's worked out and who is, you know, I mean, obviously you work with a local sheep farm problem, or you work with the company that does the sheep things and.
Yeah, they work with local grazing operations, so they kind of manage the grazing operations, but we, you know, step back and say we can provide imagery from finished projects in New York State, if you want to get an example for our work and see what that looks like. Around the sheep grazing, yes, you do need to make sure that what you're planting is palatable and also supporting the pollinators, right? We're trying to provide ecosystem services here. So there are various seed mixes. One that we commonly use is called Buzz and Buzz. It's specifically intended for this purpose, pollinator habitat, as well as grazing. And, you know, I'd like to say that we're breaking ground here in some ways, but I'm actually more pleased to say that this is becoming very common in the industry because it is a good fit. And we understand that there are these concerns and trade-offs between using agricultural land for energy production and also wanting to make sure that we have some agricultural practices that are still being maintained, which we do.
Now, you guys,
Go ahead.
you guys like, do you pay the sheep people to graze?
Yeah.
Or do they pay you?
No, we pay them. Yeah,
Pay them.
yeah.
So I'm gonna go into the management aspect of
Okay.
this. A lot of concern out there are all these solar arrays that go up. You guys get the grant money and then sell them
Mhm.
to other companies. There's one right now, I think it's Town of DeWitt that did that. And one of the homeowners is having a problem trying to reach anybody regarding that. How do you manage a solar array project after it's up and going? You guys inspect equipment regularly, make sure that the vegetation is growing as it's supposed to be.
Yes.
How do you guys do that?
Well, we work on a few ways, I guess, to ensure that one, the grazing operators themselves, they come out and they're not inspecting electrical equipment, but they're making sure that you know, the site's safe and secure for their animals for one, and they're trained to kind of give a visual inspection and let us know, let somebody in operations and maintenance know. And by the way, Pivot is a long-term owner operator. It's not to say could never be a transaction on a project. There could be, but our business model is to own and operate these systems for the lifetime of the projects. So we have the grazing operations that are coming out and they're visual inspectors. We have semi-annual operations and maintenance visits with our staff that are coming out and actually physically checking electrical connections and making sure that things are growing properly and there's not invasive species. And we do pay close attention to that. You know, we are the long-term owner operator. We want to make sure that these are working well and producing energy. It's in our best interest to do that as well.
You guys know if a solar panel for some reason were to break. Would you guys know something like that, or is it not until you actually come out and inspect? Or do you do regular inspections to determine that?
We do. And again, the visual inspection from regular visits is one of the ways that you would know if a panel was broken. One panel breaking, probably not going to pick that out from the online monitoring. If the number of them were, you can, but certainly visual inspection, IR scans where you actually look for hotspots in the models or in the modules on an operations and maintenance visit that can pick out, you know, where something's not performing correctly. You can kind of see hotspots just like you would in like a home energy audit, for example, where you can see the hot and cold spots in a home.
God, one of the specific one that I'm talking about, when they planted the vegetation, they did not take into account all the black walnut trees that were there. So none of the vegetation that they planted actually grew.
Yeah.
So it's the little things like that. That's, you know, got the concerns. I mean, you're putting in vegetation so that it's not seen and then the vegetation doesn't grow.
Yeah, we saw that this year. There was some dry field portions this year, right? And we saw before things got really wet and we saw where a couple of our plantings weren't taking well. And so got calls both from residents and from the town, and we responded and replaced the trees. And that's, so post-construction, the general contractor has a 1-year commitment, an annual commitment. That's their responsibility to replace the trees. After that, it's our responsibility to make sure that things are still growing.
So that's contracted out through a forester or a landscaping
Yeah,
company?
landscaping, right. They'll work with local or landscapers to plant the trees and.
The local law requires that, the plantings, the screening has to be done, provided, the plan has to be provided by a licensed, landscaper. So because it's intended to have natural native, I shouldn't say natural native plantings.
One thing to hire somebody to put them in, it's another thing to make sure it's actually doing what it's supposed to be.
Well, if you haven't already, you should read the emergency,
I will.
plan. I know, because some of you just got these tonight. The emergency plan goes into this in detail as to the operation and the maintenance, and it specifically says that Pivot is going to own, operate, and maintain the solar project. And my question, you can piggyback off of yours if you don't mind.
No, go for
My
it.
question about that is, so it says there's primary O&M, which is operation and maintenance, contact, and secondary if there's a problem for emergencies. So who are those people and where are those people? Are they local people?
It would be a combination. So one, headquarters is in Denver, Colorado. So that will be one point of contact. And then we also have a contract provider that currently it's a Meridian, who they have local and regional people that can deploy quickly to look at sites around the US.
It's who?
Meridian does a lot of our electrical O&M.
Because, and it also says in here, but I was curious what it does monitor, that there is remote monitoring from a system called SCADA.
Yeah, the system control and data acquisition. So it's looking at things like winds, metrology, like wind speed and solar irradiance, so we can actually benchmark performance, for example. But it's also looking for fault conditions from the power electronics on site and energy production and a host of things, so we can really real-time monitor system health.
This SCADA system is ubiquitous across all energy production, wastewater, water treatment. It's a unified system that manages pretty much the whole entire grid. So the project's connected into the grid, into a SCADA system. And that's, backbone to usually the headquarters where they monitor that stuff 24/7. But the other piece is there is a major failure or issue that will pick it up instantly. The same kind of product is to produce electricity. So it's not producing electricity, that's not the wants. That's kind of the basis of that is it's a, kind of notification system across the board.
We have a data acquisition system, and then the utility also has their data acquisition system to monitor their side of things as well.
There's been issues, so there's been several fires this year, last year there were fires on these things. What are you guys doing particularly? Because obvious, it's become obvious that there's a definite fire potential or hazard by some of these things. So what are you guys doing to either make sure to protect against that or deal besides dealing with the fire department? But what is your, well, there has to be something causing that. So what's your guys's?
Yeah, my understanding is that the fires have been batteries, energy storage systems. Which is certainly a concern, not to downplay that at all. And this site does not have concentrated energy storage like that. So like anytime you think about energy density, like a battery, right? There's a lot of energy in a battery. It's consolidated, like or a gas, like gas pipeline. That's a very energy dense medium, and so you can have events like that, whether it's a battery fire or a pipeline exploding or exploding, when you have energy dense a medium like that. Solar energy by nature is more diffuse, so
you don't see those sort of more remarkable events routinely. I mean, I think as far as best practices and how you prevent that from happening, it does start with proper installation and then operations and maintenance. So, have skilled, trained people installing the system, have quality inspections before you ever hit the switch, which we do, and then,
The one up north, Sabotage.
was it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it was battery storage. It wasn't
Yeah.
a solar array itself. And trying to find, I was actually looking to see, it's very difficult. I couldn't find much on fires with them. I didn't know what, and I don't know what that means. That doesn't necessarily mean there aren't. I just don't like them being reported. But the other thing that oh, sorry. The other thing that's come up is the amount of wind we have in Pompey. And I also tried to research my own little Google searching wind, and I could find very little where panels breaking off had anything to do with the wind. It had to do with poorly constructed, what do you call the things they're on?
Yeah, the racking.
Racking.
Yeah.
It was the racking that was the problem, not the
Yeah, right. If you don't tighten things properly.
Yeah.
I know you can speak to this probably more than I can, but the systems are engineered by licensed professional engineers to withstand the wind speeds, and there's some buffer around that maximum wind speed as well.
Yeah, and it's also about how the panels are stored at night. So these are tracking panels, so they track the sun during the day. And then they stay at a certain tighter angle or back, return back.
You go to
At
sleep
night.
at night.
They go to sleep at night, just like the rest of us try to. And then, but if they're stored flat, for some reason, there's potential for wind shear on that. But again, these panels are relatively low in height. This site is relatively well situated. I'd say that you can't bust through this, but it's not. It's, north on Sweet Road a little bit on kind of those open hills, then be a little bit more risk, but I mean, you still see lots of projects, around the area, Yeah.
Very fun.
Yeah.
So how does the clouds affect everything? You don't get a lot of sun.
Well, it depends, right? April to October, November, that's our peak production.
When I'm here, there's not.
So we certainly get enough annual energy production to make a measurable contribution. Oh, sure. And, if you can see your shadow out there, you're still getting energy production. So, if it's a dark, cloudy, rainy day, sure, not going to be a whole lot of energy production, but even if it's filtered sunlight, they're still going to produce a reasonable amount of energy. And as Jake was noting, they're a tracking system, so that further enhances their ability to maximize production throughout the day.
It sounded from what I looked at, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that wind is a bigger problem for roof mounted systems.
It can be, right,
Because they're not secured to the roof. That's just what I was reading. So I could be right.
and you're relying on that, then you're relying on the existing structure normally to tie into. And so depending on the spacing of those structural members. Whereas here, we're designing a system specifically for the site conditions. So the engineers are looking at the soil types, we're doing geotechnical tests to make sure that we understand what the soil characteristics are. They're looking at the design specifications that will ensure the system's installed right.
But this was proposed before, the neighbors were a serious concern. And the neighbors that were opposed this before, have you guys done, we're obviously gonna find out.
Sure.
When we start hearing from people, but have any of them changed, the ones that were against, did any of those neighbors change their minds?
No.
Because that was.
So we did speak with them and they were, honest and said, hey. Doesn't move the needle.
Well, I'm wondering, because you've changed the proposal, you've come up with new things, and as a legitimate. Sitting here trying to give it a full fair shake as we're supposed to do here. I'm looking to see what's what has really changed in that department, was there, I mean, who knows, maybe someone said, oh, well, now you've done it and moved it, maybe I'd be happy with it, so that's what I'm looking for, to see if closest neighbors have changed their mind.
I can only say we've taken those concerns seriously and done what we can to mitigate them, to address them.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, Gordon mentioned earlier, moving the one road, the southern road further north, that was a request from the landowner to the south there. So, that was one piece. Another piece was, just adding more screening, visual screening in, adding more conifers in. Another row of conifers more or less, just try to, reduce the, visibility of the project over time. And right off the bat.
Just with site location also, and the question about the setbacks of the wetlands, so the town code specifically says a ground mounted solar energy system has to be at least 100 feet away from the wetland. That definition in the town's code does not include fence, but we will confirm that with the codes officer that no variance is required, but just wanted to get back to that question.
Okay, great.
I know it's in the thing, but just for the public thing, how much further away from the the
neighbors.
especially the main neighbor there, how much further back from their place has it gone, this one compared to the one before?
I would have to get you an exact distance. But in all, right, we gained 6 acres of farmland over there, so I can get you an exact number if you want.
I
Not right now. I don't have that.
I mean, I'm sure it's.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the scale, I think we're, more than 200 feet from property line, probably 500 or 600 feet from the actual structure there.
Well, that, we pivot, had moved the array down this field as well, whereas before it was covering, four portions of the field. Now it's on the northern side now, but it's kind of on the other side of, the existing vegetation and garages and stuff that are up there. So this, in a way, kind of leaves a little bit more open space just for the property.
A lot of the stuff was at least floated and talked about during the process of from before about moving it, but there was talk about moving it to the north field or whatever. There was some of this, it wasn't, I guess it wasn't in the technical proposal, but some of it was floated out towards the end of the last time.
Yeah, we tried to take all the feedback that we heard and condense it down into something actionable, which is what we did.
I was looking through the full EAF. First of all, I got Janesville and these fire departments in there for fire protection, but you have Pompey Hill and the emergency plans. But there's a couple of things. One of the questions asked was, will the proposed action disturb more than an acre and create stormwater runoff? Said yes, but, and then there was this. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's one of the questions in here was, will the proposed action disturb more than 1 acre and create stormwater runoff? And the answer was yes, and then there was this, if yes, how much impervious surface will it create? So what does that mean? And there was a ratio.
Yeah, so the impervious surface is from what the DEC stormwater manual describes as impervious surface is for solar projects is the access roads, the inverter pads.
Yeah.
It does not include the panel array itself. So that acreage of impervious surface is the footprint of the road.
Okay.
In this case, there's a mechanism you can use to generate roads that are pervious, you could say, it's a closer gravel mix.
So. But the answer to the question was it does disturb more than an acre and create runoff? Is that where the impervious surfaces are, or is that the whole project?
The whole project. Yeah. So there's kind of 2 parts of that. The first part is, the size of the project as an entirety, right? So during construction, obviously, the solar area will have some sort of activity occurring
Yes.
within it. And then, what will actually become impervious, which is the portion that'll be built road or built facilities, will be under an acre.
So for drainage purposes, the solar panels don't alter the calculation at all in terms of,
No,
so it's treated as though they weren't there at all?
yeah, up to a certain slope percentage. So if you have panels on a slope greater than 12 or 15%, then it changes that.
They don't
Then you
kind
have
of,
to, treat the water.
panels don't alter the time to concentration of the flows at all.
No, because again, this according to the DEC stormwater manual is, as it remains totally vegetated underneath the panels. So that there's that treatment for that water there. You also think about it as a, soybean field or cornfield right after it was tilled, right? There's nothing for it to absorb the water and that water is just running right off.
There are large gaps between each column or access rows, about 20 feet wide between each column.
Don't flow up one, go to the ground, flow up one, go to the
Right,
ground.
right.
So it's getting treated before it hits the next.
There is a draft SWIP that's included.
Yeah, I did not read it. It was so long, but I also figured that's more for planning board if you get that far. No,
Probably our engineer.
yeah, since John will, but
Yep.
I didn't bother come tonight because I think he's heard so his presentation before the planning board. Though not our questions. But yeah,
How, the least, how long could if this keeps working and you change them out, I mean, is there a concrete dead end that, on this thing where it has to be switched back, or could they, or could it be open-ended where it's like, after you've done say the 25-year, looks like they could be redone to another 25. I mean,
Yeah.
could this potentially be a permanent solar thing? I'm asking for, and the public wants to know this too, is, that they want to know if it's going to be, because we talk about 25 years, and I know there's at least one thing in here for at least one renewal or thing.
Yep.
But is there a concrete dead end where it has to be decommissioned, or could it keep being updated indefinitely?
So our lease agreement does have a final, a limit to, I think it's 46 years. Just by maximum term and then extensions, and then I think it can exceed by law 49. So,
Does that mean it has to be decommissioned at 49, or could that be, I think the public really, is it by law, maybe this is a good question. Does it have to be decommissioned at 49 years, or can it keep going?
what's?
The technology is gonna change so
Right.
much between now and
yeah, I
49.
think 50 years ago from
It's an
now.
impossible question to answer because
Right.
maybe they will be able to come up with new.
It's my
technology.
understanding that some of the stuff is gonna be green over time anyway.
Yeah,
And have to either be replaced or whatever,
And if they
It's
replace
not
it,
just the panels, it's
Yeah.
the posts, it's the electrical, it's everything.
but all right, at a minimum, we would need to get a new lease agreement with whatever. Bill, are you gonna be around 50?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk with Bill,
I mean,
in 2070 and,
Well, that's
no,
a whole other factor what happens
sorry.
if it goes away.
I guess yeah,
it's a good
my
question.
question is, it potentially could be a forever electrical generating area. Not according to this lease, but potentially it could be, just like it could potentially be commissioned in 25 years and turn back the car. It could just as well be a permanent electrical generator for.
if there's a way to efficiently and economically continue it, I'm sure they'll find a way in that 25 years.
Yeah, and that's one of my concerns is that in 25 years, if there are no more solar incentives and we have come to rely on solar and then what happens? If there's no more incentives, and we are now relying on solar for electricity, then what happens is someone gonna step in and take over and continue the solar? I do wonder about that because I'm sure the government's gonna have to think about that, or else what's the point of, or maybe we'll be so efficient with our renewable energy that it won't be an issue by then, but I do worry about that. I wonder how that
Yeah,
plays out.
it's very speculative. If you look at what's happened with incentives in New York State specifically, they've declined dramatically year over year, and that's because solar energy is one of the few energy technologies that's actually seen costs declining by a year, because we don't have to pay, once it's installed and built and plugged in, there's no fuel costs. There are, ongoing operation and maintenance costs, but they're fairly modest, and of course rents or ongoing operational costs. But we're not paying for fuel. And so at that point, that's where, even when you're buying a solar project for your home, right? They say, hey, if you're paying for it, you're basically buying all of your energy up front. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're paying for all the infrastructure that then, once it's operating, right, it's just sitting there quietly generating electricity for years and years and years and years. But Diana, you're right, the panels will degrade over time. I think depending on technology, it's like 0.5% to 1% per year that's warranted, about 0.5%. So, and then after 25 years, the warranties for 80% of rated power. So they're still producing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, there's still measurable power being produced after 25 years by warranty, and repowering situations. And you find somebody maybe that wants to use those panels somewhere else.
But posts, I mean, are they, I didn't know this steel posts or aluminum or whatever, over time, they rust out, give way.
Yeah.
It's 25 years. Go beyond that. It's. You'd have to do a complete over,
You would probably need to repower, yes, at some point.
your electrical, everything
Yeah.
degrades over time. Even in my house.
Yeah, and so at that point, right, you're redoing your interconnection application, you're redoing your contract with the utility. So there are some checks in there besides just our lease agreement. And probably re-permitting with the town.
I have one other thing, and it's just in the EAF, the environmental assessment. In the section where you check all the existing land uses on the adjoining that occur on adjoining and near the project site. You didn't include telecommunications, and I think you should put that in there
Okay.
because it's there.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But I don't know about residential wasn't checked either, but it says suburban, so I don't know. There was no place here for really residential, like rural residential.
Yeah, I mean, I can look into that, but
Because
DC
rural
has
on a
a,
farm, I don't know,
yeah.
if that's.
DC has a definition for.
Yeah, and that's just a little thing, it's not, but I just thought telecommunications is there,
Yeah.
it's right in your face there, so you don't have to put it in. Board members, do you think we have exhausted our question for tonight, or does anybody have any more?
I'm gonna,
Well,
yeah, we could be. She wants to know if we could do a site walk.
sure, I don't see why not. I mean, we did it once before. I don't necessarily feel like all of us would need to go back, but.
This is my first time with this. project.
Yes. I know. No, and that's.
And if it's changed, I
Yeah.
would entertain another look at it.
If we have enough board members, it would have to be a meeting. So, why don't you figure out when you want to go, and then if it turns out that there's enough of us that go, then we'll have to notice it and have it be a meeting. The public can come. They came last time,
Mhm.
so it was educational. And it's also a good, I'm a visual person, so it's good for me to see. You too? Yep. Okay.
I want one, but I'm just asking like kind of, only because I'm assuming other countries are way, Right, had them all. Has there ever been a solar farm that has been decommissioned? I'm just wondering, has there ever been one, and is there an accurate costs to, I mean, I'm just wondering, is this something that has ever happened anywhere?
It's like a new technology.
I doubt it, but I'm just wondering. I'm
Yeah, I'd have to
asking.
look. I don't know.
You know, they're just, you know, to know like, okay, what is the actual cost of decommissioning? Because that is gonna, you know, if
Yeah,
that is definitely a consideration,
sure.
because it sounds like, you know, in the conversation, decommissioning seems to be a part of it. You know, but you know, what is has it ever happened? I mean, people say houses never turn back to farmland, but I can say they can. But, you know, because I've turned, survived several basements are.
So
Fine.
there have certainly been enough repairs that you understand the labor component. If I've been out on other sites where an excavator comes out and, the power of hydraulics is pretty amazing, right? You can pull out these steel piles readily with enough, big enough excavator, let's say. And so decommissioning, you can get a pretty good idea from the labor estimate, just from doing repairs and site work and all that, whether or not, that specific contractor has fully decommissioned the system or not.
But I don't know if it's even if it has been done before, it's not as relevant as the fact that we have to come back. We have to pay for a town engineer to assess what it is at that point.
Every
That's
5
gonna
years.
continually be done. So I think there's more value in that and understanding if another country has done it. It's
You say it was annual that it gets redone or every 5?
No, it's every 5 years.
5 years?
And if you think 15 years from now, the likelihood of projects being decommissioned
Right.
across the country are probably, there's a higher percentage of that and a better estimate of, exactly what those values would be based
Yeah.
on that.
It's a good
over
point.
time.
There'll be case studies, I'm sure, galore at that point.
and also just a market for companies to do recycling as well. So I think it's gonna that'll emerge.
Thank you
Thank you all.
for answering our questions. There's two things we're lacking right now. One, this needs to be referred to the ECC. They've already started to just look into it. Because they've known it's coming. So we need their comments. And also, because the planning board just made their decision in September, we don't have their recommendation in our physically, we know what it is, but we don't have the minutes from their board meeting. So I guess I'm wondering what our next step should be.
See what they.
Look at research that we're doing. I want to do a site walk and
Okay.
We gotta get more information.
Yeah, so we can.
Okay.
Bring it up at another meeting and talk about it some more.
Well, yeah. So, some of the questions or and don't ask me to look. My short-term memory has already lost them, but some of the things we were asking you to come back to us with, could you do that on the next meeting?
Just from a process standpoint, even with those things that need to happen, I would think a public hearing could be set. We have a lot of people that came here tonight that aren't necessarily able to make their comments during a public hearing.
I haven't drafted a local law for this yet, so we
He
can.
doesn't even, okay.
everybody's probably gonna get up and speak, but we're not there yet.
People are always, they're for sure gonna speak, so you'll hear them.
The usual suspects.
And plus, it has to go to the ECC first before we even draft the local law, so we have no recommendation from the ECC at this point.
Very soon.
Well, the question is, do you want to recommend it to the ECC for their review? They have 30 days to review it.
Yes. Yes, I think we should, I definitely think we should. I mean, they're already, it's part of our process. They're already they've already started to look at it and work.
But you have to formally refer it to them, so.
Right, we need.
30 days.
I make a motion that we refer this to the ECC for review.
I would second that. Discussion, all those in favor? Aye, opposed. Motion carries, so it will be formally being an email to the HCC chair. But I will formally send it there. As I said, they've already been looking at it, but. Okay.
And I can reach out to you about a site tour.
Yep. Yep, great.
Thanks.
Nikki.
I am looking for board approval or board acceptance of the September 12th regular meeting minutes.
I make the motion to accept them out.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Board approval for September 2023 town clerk and tax collector bank reconciliation reports.
I'll make a motion to accept the bank reconciliation reports. Town clerk tax collector for September.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
And approve and for payment of bills.
Yeah, and if you know, there was a couple of bills in here that. Can we approve them all except for?
Sure.
That we had. Questions about, so. There were, if you want to write down the numbers, we'll approve them except for these. 453, voucher number 453. Voucher number 443. There was more than one. Oh, those two. Voucher 472 and voucher 450. I would make a motion to approve payment of bills on the October abstract, except for the four that we just.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. BR's not here, but do you want to mention his? Yes, I do. BR has a sick child. Priorities. I did feel like, oh, I had it.
This is in regards to the ARPA funds. And BR has just requested that instead of vehicle that he had previously wanted to use the funds for, that he change it. Actually, everybody's got a copy. It looks
Yeah.
like.
They do, except for me, I don't know what to do. But I,
And this is to replace the snowplow truck. And the price is $150.
and
Yes.
that's instead of what he wanted.
Yes, yeah, and replace up, not in addition to.
Why did you decide to change it?
That's my question.
I think originally what he was requesting, there are things that are in greater need. He was originally requesting the money for. Because the ARPA funds, we knew it was going to go to the highway department. It's just. Instead of the vehicle that he originally thought he'd put the dollars towards, this was a greater need.
This is less than what, or
I think it's less, but
Yeah,
I didn't bring my ARPA file with me, so I don't know.
I don't think he's requesting additional dollars,
No.
just.
And it's instead of anyway.
instead of,
Yeah.
so the others would be off the.
The other
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
this would supersede the previous request, so he wants to change his.
What was the request before? It's for another.
It was for a 10-wheeler, and now he wants the snow plow, the plow is in dire need. Truck 11 is what he was telling us. He said he had a discussion with this highway crew, and it was their opinions that changed his mind.
Something broke.
But I just think they said that it's gonna go first. So,
There's lots of needs.
yeah.
So we're looking for a motion to switch.
Yes, and he has we have a contract, not a contract, a proposals from state contract. Is a contract number. Somewhere. Please. There's a model number on here. It's in the contract. Is it on the page? To be state. I think. That's all he gave me.
So is this, I'm just trying to look at the type of truck, this is like a not a dump truck with a plow, it's more of a smaller truck with a plow, correct?
Yeah.
Chevy.
2023 Chevy Silverado 6500. That's no problem. Oh, what is that? It's 54.
55, Chevy 55.
It's just a kind of-
So let's see.
Something.
Oh. Yeah, the second page is, does say that.
That's different. 6,500 HD.
They know he wanted us to do it tonight because of, but we could, you know what? Let's table this until, the budget hearing night. We can address it then, just because I'm not clear. I don't see a contract number for a state contract, and I'm not comfortable making a motion without it.
And this is two different vehicles.
Yeah, it's two different.
Yeah,
Yeah, front page and back page are two different bits.
so,
I believe it's the back page that he wants to. But we can,
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not comfortable without him here to tell us. All right. Everybody.
Yeah.
Got the coach. Coach report. Everybody got the coach report? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still looking at them.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was
Just wait on it.
issued 9 permits in September. For completions of projects. And several violations, 3 violations. Relating to no silt fence during construction, no pool fence during construction. That was twice. And then stop work orders, 3 stop work orders. So. That's on the. Veronica, I don't think that's on the website yet because we didn't have scanning capability until today. Right, but that will be for anybody who's interested in looking at that. That's okay. So, Tim, I take it you have nothing else to add, and town council has nothing to add, and I have nothing to add tonight. So we will go to public comments. How many are? So there will be an opportunity at some point with the pivot project to be heard. So if that's what you're going to talk about tonight, I would ask you to be concise. Just because we know we've heard, we know. Okay, so we have to go into executive session after this as well for 2 different items. So you're limited to 5 minutes. If you take less time, we would be very grateful.
And remind everybody to come up here.
Yes, come up here and talk to us, so.
First on the list is J.R. Andis.
I'm gonna start with, well, first of all, I want to thank you guys. I didn't have a chance to thank you for the way you've handled Frank Long Road. You said it was a process. I thought you were torturing us, and then when it was done, I thought it was a process. So that worked out, and hopefully we have the same result here. In learning more about Sweet Road, I feel like it's the same thing. A lot of the same issues, environmental across the board. I have frustration with it because that's one of the main corridors right through our town. And it's the wrong place for it. In a lot of presentations, they come in, you never see pictures of a solar park. And they're everywhere. And I never drove by a solar park and go, wow, that's a beautiful solar park. They're ugly. And they're bad, and they're not meant for here. They could go in many other places in New York State. Albany gets more sun, Binghamton, we're right off the lake. We don't get as much sun. So I'll back up to first the plan. It's in the town plan and it says view shed. This should have started and stopped with view shed alone. They always present, oh, like Frank Long, oh, you won't even see them. Well, we knew that not to be true. And if they put one row of trees in, and I didn't hear how high or whatever, but you can't not see these things. When you drive around, you see them. They're massive. And this is gonna be, you mentioned 100 feet before. That's about the length of this building. They're there. You're gonna see everything. And view shed is view shed. And it should end right there, I believe. Bill mentioned the town plan, we have to do our part. I really don't think we have to, because there are all these other places around the state where there's New York State money, they can go anywhere. And I think our town, what it's all about, the views, what we have, we don't have industrial parks here. Other towns have those. Manlius, they can present it here. He can have another one down there. If they want 7, 8 of them, that's great for them. They're gonna hate them down the road, but they're all for it. Let them have it. There's a reason our town didn't vote for fracking and windmills. I said this in the past, I'm gonna say it again because it applies here. More so here. This is gonna be a legal battle down the road for our town, which we can't afford. And it's really sad that they would even consider putting it around someone's home. And that just is like the rudest thing I think that you could do to people. Not appropriate, unfair. One of the things you mentioned was training the fire department. Well, the recent fire in Lyme on that solar park, and if you Google and read about these nationally, they happen often. And the solar farm that burned there, it burned for a full day. And the article talks about all the toxic and runoff. So yeah, they put out the fire, but who's responsible to clean up that mess, the toxins that are now in the soil if we have a fire here? And I don't think our fire department, they can train all they want. I don't think they're equipped for a fire like this.
Jared, just so you realize, the fire in Lyme was battery storage. It wasn't the panels. And we don't have, this is not a project that has battery storage. So
Okay.
there is not the same degree of
Risk.
risks.
Okay. Fair enough, but batteries, I didn't know that, but to your point, batteries can catch fire too.
Yes.
I haven't read anything about, I'm sure I could Google it, but good thing. You know, I don't know the Stacers at all, but I've met them now and stuff, but I just hear what wonderful people they are from everybody. I've asked because we've all been doing this so long. And I really don't feel like it's fair for these people. I wish that the town had spent all the time that we spent on this looking for the right place. I heard the dump was the right place, then it was too small. Well, let them deal with too small, then that's what they get to use. But if there's other places within the town, I wish our energy went towards finding those places. It's just not right that it goes there. I don't know the owner of Heritage Hill, but that guy, he must be really upset about this. The number one reason they go up there is for the view. And that I believe is going to be in their view. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to, we are here to listen, but if I hear something that is not accurate, I want to correct it. Because I think it's important. So the dump issue, it wasn't because it was too small. There's no infrastructure there. It's too far off the grid. So
Initially, you told me it's too.
it is too small, but it's not even an issue. I mean, you can't even you couldn't do it.
So just to your point, so we learned that it was about $1 million per mile to move the phase 3. And we thought it was, you said 3 miles, then I heard it was only a mile away. My feeling is, let them.
All right, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I wanted, because if somebody else can chime in, if you know the area, whether it's 1 or 3 miles. My point is, let's move the phase 3 power to where it's not going to upset anyone or change the view shed in our town. Let these companies that are making the millions pay for it and move it where it's more appropriate.
I hear you. And to that point as well, the Environmental Conservation Commission is forming a subcommittee to do just that, to look at our town and determine if there are locations in our town where it would be open. So, but I did tell you it's too small because it's only like 18 acres and you couldn't put much of anything there if you had to only use percentage. So
Well,
anyway,
my point then most appropriate would be another town than our town.
yeah, as I said, I'm just correcting. I just want to make sure we're accurate.
And next is Cole Henderson, Chadwick Circle.
I'd like to respectfully ask you to vote no on the solar project, or at least consider delaying the decision on it. And there's four primary objections that I have with it. First is, I believe a vote for the solar project panel is a vote against the environment. And it's a vote for loss of farmland, loss of habitat for animals, erosion, risk of contamination of drinking water, and destruction to our agricultural landscape. Solar panels contain heavy metals such as cadmium, copper, lead, selenium, and silver. These are all classified as hazardous waste under the Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Some of the pollutants wash out into the ground when it rains and into our water supply. 2 months ago, in August of 2023, over 1,600 scientists and scholars from around the world, including Nobel laureates, signed a declaration that there is no climate emergency. And they made 6 arguments against the alleged climate crisis and the politics behind it, including that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant as claimed, but plant food. Increasing yields of crops worldwide. They claim that the science basis for the model inputs that have been claiming impending climate doom is primarily political science. There's no moral obligation to be pro-solar and against carbon. Secondly, I think the solar project is immoral. Solar projects are funded up to 50% by the federal government through subsidies because these projects cannot stand on their own economics. The Alliance for Clean Energy New York just requested a 64% price increase on 86 wind and solar projects. The government gets its money for this and other projects like this from people such as the taxpayers of Pompey. Doug Kilman is a former 22-year-old Goldman Sachs banker worth an estimated $3 to $5 billion. And he controls over $30 billion in energy assets. He owns Energy Capital Partners, which owns Pivot Energy. Pivot Energy cannot claim that they're going to be here in 25 years for this project. They don't even control themselves. This means that if you vote yes for this project, you're voting for a transfer. Excuse me, I apologize. Lost my space. He owns Energy Capital Partners. They're going to pay over $2 million for Pompey land to build a multi-million-dollar solar project. That means if you vote yes for the project, you're voting for a transfer of over $1 million from the taxpayers of Pompey to the landowner, as we taxpayers would be paying for over half the cost of the land. Yes vote also means that you're voting to transfer several $1 million of the total project cost from us, the taxpayers, to the pockets of Doug Kimmelman and the corporations that he controls. Thirdly, a vote for the solar panel project is a vote for a future broken promise and tax burden for the citizens of Pompey. The insurance policy to pay for the cleanup in 25 years may not exist. The Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance in 2020 discussed environmental spinoffs, how corporations dump liability through spin and bankruptcy. This includes insurance companies. Between 2012 and 2017, 4 of the largest coal companies in the United States escaped environmental liabilities of $5.2 billion. Corporations are at a legal and informational advantage over small towns like ours, and they're able to avoid deterrence and payment and take advantage of us. Let us remember, it was only 15 years ago, during the financial crisis of 2008, that almost every major insurance carrier in America was insolvent. They misestimated risks and liabilities and were unable to make payments on their promises. And if the insurance policy of the $290,000 is light today, and to decommission the project in 25 years, let's say it's $500,000, even with a 3% inflation rider, the cost will also double too. So the 290 will go to 580 and the 500 will go to $1 million. The town of Pompey will be even further behind in the financial cost to decommission the project. And then lastly, I say, what is the hurry? Is it a benefit to the citizens of Pompey to hurry, or is it a benefit to Pivot Energy? We are taught as children that haste makes waste. Do we not remember the lessons and values of our parents? Why would a decision that impacts every taxpayer in Pompey over more than a 25-year period be made in a hurry? What is the benefit to us of hurrying? Rational, reflective, informed, careful, and thoughtful decision-making requires time. Stewardship on your part requires time. I ask you to vote no on the project.
Can I just, I have asked you time and time again, and this audience knows that there is not to be reaction to public comment. So please.
Part of our free speech.
You can take it outside. It's not free speech to clap, so please. Free speech is what you just did. Yeah, hi, Mr. Foote.
Sorry, this is about something else.
I know.
Yeah,
You know what it's about.
I know.
Welcome, neighbors, but you're not.
So. Anyways, hello, I'm Matt Foote of 8356 number 2 Road East. I'm here to discuss home occupation. I'd specifically like to ask what is the board. As you know, I operated an Etsy business in my pole barn. And I heard there is a question on whether work in a barn is home occupation. If you drove my barn while I was working there, you would never know. There was no noises or odors noticeable from outside. If I operated out of my attached garage, it would be the same thing. What if it was a 3-car garage, a barn dominium, a walkout basement? If I put my gym equipment in my barn, I would call it a home gym. So why is an Etsy business in the same place not a home business? I've actively tried not to be obtrusive to neighbors. My mail pickups were limited. No more stops than a normal Amazon user these days. I often use my personal truck to reduce visibility. I don't think anyone in town is proposing to ban trucks. If there is something more I can do about mail, please let me know. Obviously, I just want to have this discussion really. My neighbors, of course, have a home business as well that they've continued to operate. And they use their barns for their business. They also have trailer, UTV trucks that go back and forth. I want to know how I'm so different and what can I do to be approved, obviously. These are the types of businesses you should look at as well, and not simply just mine. I want to make sure that everyone is considered instead of just who's complained about. I first met Tyler Johnson in August 2022, and I felt positive once the town came up with an official permit process, I could meet those requirements and receive a permit. The town never moved forward on my permit, rejecting, revisioning, or approving, as far as I know. You still have my $100 and sent an appearance ticket in March 2023. This has been a long process already. More so, I'd like to emphasize why didn't anybody talk to me during that time? I know I was in contact with Tyler, but I just honestly, it was very much a surprise that, hey, I'm going to court now. So I thought I was still waiting to be reviewed. And the town takes its time to do things. Now there is a moratorium on home occupation permits. I'm actually ecstatic that there is a real process going on instead of this gray area I have been living in. I do have concerns over the committee. To my knowledge, 2 members of the committee are my neighbors who complained about me. I've told you before that they presented what I believe was incorrect information to the board and the town. It's naive to think that they're about to consider my Etsy business fairly. I believe they are proposing a law that will allow their commercial use of their barns for their landscaping business, but prevent my use of my barn for, in my opinion, a quiet Etsy business. Obviously, this whole time, I've always been happy to compromise on basically anything. I would like to join your home occupation committee. Please tell me when the next meeting is, and I will be there, even if just to watch. Here's my contact info. Thanks for your time.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
That was UNN, I think.
I get 50 minutes, right? So I won't use up all 5 minutes. I'll reiterate some of the comments that have already been made. But one of the first thing I'd like to say is that I haven't heard what the town gets out of this. How much money do they get out of it? Per year? And how is that going to be impacted by the decreased property value, the decreased assessments that are going to be requested or demanded by property owners that are impacted by this? I've heard there's one property that's definitely impacted. And how is that going to impact future development and that property owner? Second thing I'd say is I don't buy that 290,000 is going to pay for taking this out. It's going to take $1 million to put it in. It's a $10 million industrial plant, basically. And we're dreaming if we think that $290,000 is going to get rid of it. I just heard, I think, they spent $280,000 just to put a roof on the garage.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay, good. I'm glad we saved, we really saved some money there, so that's great, but I don't see it, you're talking about acres of an industrial plant coming down in 25 years, and it's just not gonna be enough revenue. I don't think it's fair to the Stacers, who I don't know and I've never met. If they're sitting here, I don't know who they are. And the second thing is, the developer can leave. So just before I came, I left my home. We have family from out of town. And we're watching an old movie, The Music Man. And it's about a salesman that comes in and sells something and then he's gonna leave. There's nothing that keeps these people here. And I know it's kind of funny and humorous, but I'd rather see them be responsible for taking this out in 25 years. They want to put it in, they can stand up and indemnify the town and pay to take it out. If they really want it, they could move the phase 3 lines or encourage that.
I agree on that.
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Vaughn, where are you from?
I'm from Canyonwood Lane.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you said that and I missed it or you didn't say it.
I couldn't read it.
Probably got excited and missed it, so.
I didn't miss it. I couldn't read it.
That,
I
well,
wasn't sure it was.
positions are allowed to have, poor rights. Thank you.
Next is Ivan Fuller.
Ivan Fuller, 3915 Route 91. I just have a few short things. Question I would like to ask, one is, how would someone go about getting a traffic survey on Route 91? We are being overrun with overloaded vehicles, extra wide vehicles, heavy loads. The asphalt in front of my barn is literally caving in. These culvert pipes, because of the drainage and the fact that the state has never cleaned any of them out over all the years, all the bottoms are rotting out of them. You can see the steel floating down during the heavy downpours. I feel the road is being undermined and there's water that washes up through the cracks in the highway. We're going to have a serious problem here in years to come. Another issue is, which I believe Mr. Lipe here might have been privy to the pink tapes that George put up on in the water now that I have just recently learned about, that's being run all the way down the south side of Frank Long Road from the top of the hill and diverted into this, diverted all the way back through the properties and into this creek.
What pink tapes?
There's sticks that George put in that shows where the water runs into a pipe. A culvert pipe down Frank Long Road. And then actually gets diverted underneath George's driveway and then through that trench that he dug. And so the runoff that I thought was coming off of Frank Long, which I thought started halfway down the hill, is actually starting all the way up from the field on top. So all of that water on the south side of that hill during these heavy rains is coming from the very top of the hill, down the south side of Frank Long Road, where the town has decided to divert it. I can understand what a tragedy it would be if it all came down the road. But that tragedy's been diverted to my front yard now.
I don't think the town.
Hold on, so the town has decided to divert it.
Well, there's culvert pipes there. And somebody has diverted it into George's driveway where he had to cut it down. And then eventually flooded his neighbor, then he run the trench and it's eventually making its way back to the creek. It's not the town that did it all. This is just something that is acquired because of everybody else.
You said you had 3 things.
Yes, I do have another thing. And I don't have anything against Heritage Hill. But I do have an issue with the moratorium that you're putting on small businesses while he seems to be getting everything that he asked for. So I'm kind of just at a loss here between the two of these. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. That's about all I have to say on that. I just don't understand the two.
I can explain it to you. I don't need to do it tonight unless you want.
But I'm just trying to figure this out, how you can stop everybody else and allow somebody else to just go bigger and bigger.
We have no process for home office.
And I guess the third thing, which is even simpler, is if this was your house and your property, how would you vote?
I can't see it.
Have you been looking at it all night?
It's a little bit smaller.
It is, but if that was your house and your property, how would you vote?
Deb Grenier, Cemetery Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'd just like to know, they said it cost $9 million. Pivot said $9 million to construct it. How much is federal and state taxpayer dollars? Federal, that we're paying, and Mr. Henderson touched on it. But I would like to know the figure, how much is federal money? How much is state money? I think that'd be a good question to ask. And also the intermittent energy that we get from that solar farm, industrial farm would be not really worth, the suffering that we'll have to do with an eyesore, the view shed. And we only get about 205 days of, we have 205 cloudy days a year. How could Hobby be an ideal spot for this sort of project? Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha Bigliotti, Gibbs Road.
I'm going to after that.
All right. The monthly, bad news on climate change, Carol.
You might need to speak up a little.
Okay, I am going to give you good news, bad news, and good news about climate change. The very good news is that the planet is now adding 1 gigawatt of solar power every day. This is awesome. That's a nuclear plant's worth of energy every day. About half of that is in China, believe it or not. China is constructing solar plants. It's crazy. They're also constructing fossil fuel plants, but they're constructing a lot more renewable energy, especially solar, but wind also. A lot more renewables than they are of fossil fuels. We're in second place for how much solar power we're adding, and Brazil's in third place. Just a point on subsidies. I was just looking it up on Wikipedia while we sat here. This is from Wikipedia. The International Renewable Energy Agency tracked energy sector subsidies in 2020 and found that around 70% of energy sector subsidies were fossil fuel subsidies. About 20% went to renewable power, 6% to biofuels, and 3% to nuclear. I don't think people realize how much of our tax dollars are already going and have always been going to fossil fuels. So when we subsidize solar, we're sort of just leveling that playing field because we've been subsidizing fossil fuels forever. Right. The good news is all that new renewable power that's coming online. It's also gotten to the point right now where it's cheaper to build renewable infrastructure than it is to maintain existing fossil fuel, and far cheaper to build than it is to build new fossil fuel infrastructure. So we're at a tipping point where the market is just going to be telling us what makes sense financially, because it's cheaper now to build solar than it is to maintain fossil fuel infrastructure. Another great piece of news. Bad news, global temperatures in September shattered the previous record by 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the largest margin ever observed. So it's the most anomalous month we've ever had, even though we had the hottest June ever, the hottest July ever, the hottest August ever. September wasn't that hot in the northern hemisphere, but it was hotter than any other September by a bigger margin that we've ever seen. And there's a bottleneck. There's a lot of renewable energy projects proposed, but there's a bottleneck in getting them established. Getting renewable electricity and transmission projects approved, permitted and cited and permitted. So we have to address that. And then I want to follow with some more good news. A big survey by the Washington Post and the University of Maryland finds that large bipartisan majorities of Americans say that they would not mind having fields of solar panels or wind turbines being built in their communities. So about 75% of all people surveyed in this survey said that they'd be comfortable living near solar farms. 69% said they'd be comfortable living near wind. They checked it in terms of rural and suburban people versus urban, and they still get 69 to 79% people saying that they'd be comfortable. They checked it in terms of party affiliation, Republicans and Democrats. I'll just give you solar. It goes from 66 to 87% of people being comfortable with solar in their communities. Less than 50% of Republicans and Democrats would be comfortable with a new nuclear plant. So the take home is strong majorities, no matter where you live. And again, we have solutions for this dire problem, but we just have to use them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just ask, where do you go, Mr. Henderson and Martha? If you have sites for this information, I'd be interested in your sources. I just would. You talked about it. What was it? This August. Pardon me?
I have documents in my car.
No, I don't want the documents. I just want the sources. That August 2023 signed declaration. I'd be interested to see that.
All right, that's in my car.
Okay. And then the Harvard Law School Forum.
I have that document.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Tom Byrne, Frank Long Road.
Back up again here. Anyway, yeah, coming back to wind, a few things I want to bring up briefly, but the whole thing with the wind, I mean, we're just driving down to Toggenburg to go skiing, and you go up that hill at Heritage Hill. I mean, I've never seen snowbanks, snow drifts, I don't think anywhere around here to that magnitude. I mean, sometimes it's like, what, you know,
yep,
10 or 12 foot drifts along that road, but I think when somebody mentioned about the wind, what about if you put that solar park up in there and you get a big snowstorm blowing hard all over the tops of these panels? I don't know how much snow they can make, but you know how strange a weather we get. I'm just throwing hypothetically, when you think about that, you bury all those panels in heavy snow and then we get like a 60-degree day the next day or something. I wonder how they're rated for that kind of weight. I don't know the answer to that, but
It's a good question.
I just thought when someone mentioned the wind, what about the heavy snow getting blown on top of them? Then the other thing was that 58 decibels, I think, is about the average that these solar parks. We're looking at the other one, that humming noise of 58 decibels, like in an office, anything over 55 is considered hazardous. I know, because I complained and they redid our air system where I said, but I put some, we just didn't have the right panels. It was brand new and they just missed it, but it was a loud office. Anything over 55 is considered hard to concentrate. So when they say these things produce a humming noise of 58 decibels, I don't know how far that sound carries to the neighbors living nearby.
Where did you get that info about the decibels?
Oh, it's a standard, like if you go like what's considered loud, you Google it, what's considered a loud environment for an office? Anything over 55 is considered.
No, but I mean the 58 for the humming noise from the panels.
I can reference it.
Okay.
If you look at our planning board minutes, there's something in there that I put in there. And I think it's 75 is what's considered where it's getting to be potentially hazardous.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's like a factory, like our factory making our earplugs to get, you know. I'm not saying 58 is hazardous. I'm just saying a humming noise.
No, I've not heard that before, so I'm just.
Yeah. I can find the other email. to you.
Thanks.
And anyway, one more, well, two more things. It's one main one I'll get to in a sec, but the local law filing for the tier 3 overlay, the item number E3 there. You know, back to the view shed thing here. It says avoid sites that substantially contribute to and are important to the scenic quality of the landscape. And when you think of that Heritage Hill view down across there, and they have the farm days that's been around for years, all those tractors and people come from, that thing's a huge event. You know, I know some people like solar and some people don't, and I get it, but the whole thing of the, you know, the whole tractor and farmland concept and everything to put those panels all over that beautiful farm right there. When you're looking at it, and it's part of the view shed, is that a good place to really put this thing? You know, I question that, you know, when you think about farm days, being that whole area right there, and that's the main view that everybody go to Heritage Hill for. And that's right in the local law filing, the most recent one in 2021. But the one main thing I really want to bring up here is these pilot payments. You know, on average, well, you have IDA is willing to negotiate the pilot plants, and then NYSERDA. I got a couple quick notes I just wanted to read real quick. Typically IDA standard pilot for solar projects is a range of 4,200 to 4,800 per megawatt. That's what IDA, these are Syracuse.com article, with a 2% increase each year for 25 years. So that's averaging about $28,000 a year. And then NYSERDA right here in central New York, NYSERDA is the one that's got the big carrot out why everybody's coming, all these solar companies are even coming up here to upstate New York. I understand, you know, the New York State NYSERDA push. NYSERDA recommends payment rates of between 1,700 and 5,100 per megawatt of capacity. So for a 5 megawatt solar farm, which we're talking about, that would mean annual payments of anywhere from 8,500 to 25,500. And if I understand it right, you know, things do change. You know, I guess in 2021, the deal was a couple $1,000s a year or something they were going to pay, and then like a scholarship. I don't know what the deal is on this, but this is a new application, if I understand it correctly. So my question is, if this is a new application, why couldn't this be renegotiated? This whole deal be renegotiated, how much they're going to pay the towns? I think there's way too much money being left on the table. I mean, I don't know how much time I got, but you look at how much, he did that on purpose.
Finish your thought.
Okay. Well, it's just like, well, you got Tully's getting, they're getting 430 grand over 15 years from 3 different farms. 430 grand each over 15 years span.
I can talk to you about that, but
Okay, but anyway, I guess the deal, I guess when I never could sink my teeth in, I don't understand how these pilot gets negotiated, but Pivot they got $203 million of financing in May of 2023 through Silicon Valley Bank, the one that was almost collapsed, but they've got a lot of money. So for them to come in here and if this is a new application, I really think that the deal should be renegotiated.
well, the old deal died with that project. So if it ever goes forward, it would be a new deal. So, and I don't know what's going on in Tully, but they do have remarkable income from their solar.
So between the view shed, I really think this thing should be, I understand the moratorium is not feasible for the amount of applications, but at least there'd be some more homework done on how much money the town should get. And they always talk about the benefit versus the risk to the town. There should be a lot more benefit to the town. It seems like.
Okay, you've finished.
Jim Martino, Canterbury Road.
How you doing, everybody? My name's Richard Margino. I live on Canterbury Road. Well, two things I want to talk about. First thing is the Airbnb, the short-term rental regulation. So, I definitely understand why the town wants to put regulation in for public safety, for people staying in Airbnb. That is important to a certain aspect, but my biggest fear is over-regulation of Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rental. Me, myself, I'm a real estate investor. I came to Central New York about 15, 16 years ago from Long Island, moved up here and started buying multifamily rental properties and worked hard to build up my business from the ground up. And last couple of years, me and my wife saved enough money to buy a dream house in Pompey. And when the pandemic hit, a lot of landlords in Syracuse and Central New York had issues with tenants not paying rent and New York State eviction laws. So a lot of landlords, instead of doing a traditional long-term rental, a year lease or 6-month lease, they decided to do Airbnb, and it's becoming more and more popular. And it's actually a lot more lucrative doing Airbnb on certain properties versus a long-term rental. You know, a typical 3-bedroom apartment might only get $1,000, $1,200 a month. An Airbnb, that place for maybe $250, $300 a night, and make a lot more money 3 to 4 times. So I think the restriction is not a good thing as far as too much overregulation. Big government is not a good thing. And other towns such as Salina have moratoriums where they don't allow anything less than 30 days. So I just don't want it to be, we get to the point where you guys might put a moratorium or anything that's too over restrictive. And the other thing I'm here to talk about is solar. I feel that obviously most people want to save the environment. That's a good thing. Everybody wants to do their part. I do my part here and there. I have LED lights in my house. I have pellet stoves. Try not to use as much oil as possible. But the thought that this industrial solar, so you want to put solar panels on your house, that's great, but this is too big of an industrial solar complex in between 2 beautiful homes, too close to homes. There's got to be a better way. I think that, if it was by the garbage dump in an industrial area, not in an agricultural area, not close to homes. So it's just very unfair to close by homeowners, and I think there could be a better compromise solution. The solar thing, there's a lot more we got to know about it as far as long-term health effects and everything else. But for the most part, I understand people's ambition to save the environment, but there's also a lot of negative environmental effects about the solar. That's to be really taken into consideration. And the biggest thing is you shed and the homeowners are close by home. So I think, it could affect everything. So it's very important to vote the right way and not go get solar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. One more?
2 more. Nancy Purdock.
I thought you said there were 10.
Well, somebody added.
You just came and signed up, didn't you, you rat?
Nancy Furdock, Sevier Road. Going on the record again, I'm one of your usual suspects, I think. It's good to hear from some of the unusual suspects tonight. But I'm one of the usuals. I'm again going on the record saying I'm not in favor of this particular solar farm, just like I wasn't in favor of the Frank Long. This one in particular, mainly because of the visual impact, the effect on neighboring properties, and unanswered questions about safety and who will be responsible if something goes wrong. Thank you, Renee, for acting on my request to look into other potential properties within the town to see if there's somewhere we could situate one, if that's really what the town wants. Situate it somewhere where it won't impact, property values, view sheds and all that. So I appreciate that. It would seem to me if that's the step that we've taken or that you've taken, would it not make sense to table the pivot project until we potentially exhaust any other properties that might be more conducive to this? It's also telling to me that neither of the owners of the proposed solar farms that have come before the board would be the ones that would be visually impacted by the positioning of these solar farms. That says a lot to me. I believe at least one of the property owners could have put it right next door to their own home, but they chose to put it as far away as possible from them. So it wouldn't impact them, but it would impact their neighbors. That doesn't seem very neighborly to me, nor does it seem fair. And also the pilot program, definitely we're gonna want to renegotiate that to the best interests of our town. Renee, you had alluded to a while back that we already have at least one, if not two, solar farms in the town of Pompey. Taylor Road.
No, that's not in the town, but it's on Taylor Road, but it's in the town of DeWitt. And
So we don't have any in the town, but near the border.
And you can't even see it.
Right, right. So we do have them nearby, so this area is technically doing its part. So it's well hidden, and that's what, if not that I'm thrilled about it, but if we were going to do it, it's best to keep it hidden so people don't even know about it. The board has a very difficult task. I don't envy you. You have to try to anticipate what's going to happen 50 years from now. And protect this town from potential repercussions from dangerous situations that we can't even imagine yet. If this goes through, I implore the board to make an airtight law contract, whatever it is you go into with Pivot, to make sure that they can't do any improvements, enhancements, enlargements, additions to this plan other than what was originally proposed. You mentioned, I know that there have been the fires that were impacted by the battery storage. What's to prevent them from getting this site plan approved and then putting battery storage on the site? Is there a clause or something that
Because we
says?
have no local law that allows battery storage in the town of Pompey.
Do we have a local law that prevents it? Do we need it?
Tim?
Yeah, I don't.
If the site plan is changed, then they're not in compliance with their site plan. So if they'd have to amend the site plan if they wanted to change.
But we also don't have a battery storage.
Yeah, I don't. The answer to the question is, you can't change your site plan without the approval of this.
Okay, I know we've had issues with the towers and them doing work on the towers and not getting appropriate permissions or whatever. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't studied, but there have been concerns over the growth of the towers unencumbered by, I'm not sure. I know Stan Gorman could probably speak to that better, but okay, all right.
But I'm not going to interrupt, but I'm just saying that's not exactly accurate.
Okay.
They've done.
I just want to make sure that we're protected years from now, not just in the immediate future or
We all.
And similar note, but completely flipping my position. I know BR was concerned about putting solar panels on the barn roof. A suggestion for you, you might want to consider, we were out west and they have the parking lots with the mounted that cover, which would be great to keep the snow off your cars while you're here at the office too. So just something to think about for that.
You're always thinking.
Try.
Okay, Carl. And Carl, by the way, I got your, and we all did. I have not had time to read it. I know Diana did.
I figure, I didn't give anybody enough time to read it. And I figured I might as well at least say what I thought the relevant things were.
And I just want you to know, I skimmed it and I am very impressed with what you're, with taking, but I haven't read it, so.
I'm not gonna read this, so.
You better not, because it's like 8 pages long.
So, the reason I'm here is I'm not here to make an opinion on whether or not I think Pivot's a good company or bad company. I have no way to know, whether the project's a good project or not, but what I'm bringing to here is a discussion of some factors that I think are really important for the board to think about. Okay. I think the most important thing is when I read the comprehensive plan numerous times, when you read the comprehensive plan, is there's mere sentences that address energy, commercial and industrial. In fact, there's almost nothing in there about commercial and industrial. There's a couple of sentences in there about energy. And it's my impression when you look at the full context is that there is no expectation by the comprehensive plan or expectation that there's going to be power plants built in the town. Okay, so which is what this is, you know, it's a power plant. That's really what's been, it's a small one, but it's still a power plant. You know, whether or not there's the solar law, which I think is really well crafted. I think they did a fabulous job on that. But I see a fundamental conflict between that solar law and the comprehensive plan. Now legally, what does that mean? If anything, I have no idea. I'm not an attorney, but it's something that needs to be considered. And one of the things that I would recommend is that the board or whatever, I think there's a committee that's appointed, they should go back and look at what that comprehensive plan says. And if the intent was there, but it's not written in there somehow, I think that needs to be addressed. Because from my point of view, as a planning board person trying to uphold the comprehensive plan as part of my responsibility, I don't see how the project can be approved as it is. And generally speaking, when we talk about, you know, if somebody goes, has a project that they want to do on their property, it's normally for their benefit. They might want to run a business, or they might want to do something where they have to go in front of codes or a ZBA and get approval. This is not one of those. So you have this overlay, which was for the purpose of what we're talking about today, but which again, I think is kind of in conflict with the comprehensive plan. I think the other thing that we need to talk about is this project up front, like many projects, look like there's zero risk. And so in this case, when you are dealing with businesses that are very early, fast-growing businesses, highly subsidized businesses, there's high risk to those businesses. And so it's the failure rate of businesses when they're rapidly growing, especially when the size of the businesses for energy favors much larger companies than smaller companies. So there is risk there. The question really is there risk to the town? If this is purely private, there is potentially no risk to the town, other than we may end up with a power plant that's on somebody's property who doesn't own it, that's in the town that may not be able to do anything. And if those subsidies go away or something key goes away, it is possible that that business is no longer there. So that's something that has to be considered. So I'll give you an example. This is not even a new business, but Shoppingtown Mall. Who would have thought that Shoppingtown Mall would be closed? But things changed that people didn't foresee. Maybe people foresee it when Destiny went in, but something that was vibrant, all of a sudden it's gone. So risk is something that has to be taken into consideration. And so one of the ways to take that into consideration is, you know, the board obviously has the right to approve or not approve the project. You know, that's their decision. One of the things I would recommend is that, which is talked about in the Harvard Business Review article that I handed out. And in that article, what they talked about is the IRNA or INRA, which it is, that one of the women here referenced, is the business projections for the life cycles of solar is 30 years. And the Harvard Business Review article indicates that it's much, much lower than that, because as we talked about, the panels degrade and new panels get better. And with the incentives, they're incentivized to roll over these panels a lot. So they're not really keeping the panels for 30 years. They said the rollover, the amount of waste that's being generated from solar is 50 times what their projections are. It's substantial. And a lot of these wastes, it's glass and other materials which have a really low value. And so they're speculating that will go into the dump. We want to make sure whether it's hazardous or not. I don't know the details on whether it's hazardous or not. But that waste stream that exists right now in the United States, there is no provision for who is responsible for that. So we want to make sure that the town is not responsible for that. Whether or not that goes into bonding or something like that, I don't know, but something like that needs to be addressed.
So Carl, do I give you more time because you're a planning board member or do I have? I expect more, your 5 minutes is up. But we will need, as I said, I skimmed it. I have that article, The Dark Side already. So I know Diana's already looked at it. And he's on our home occupancy committee. He's a treasure. He's a very, I really appreciate your work. So thank you.
For the public's information, we are making progress towards that.
Yes, we are. I wish Matt had.
I wanted to comment back to him, but he left. It was, we are making things and there are, it's a process, but we're trying to balance that out between,
Yes, we can talk about that later because we still have to go into executive session. But you're right. We have it. So I would make a motion to.
Oh, geez. You want me to read? I
can't read it, yeah.
But it's long. It's from Barbara Stacer on Sweet Road. I want to express my deep concerns regarding the proposed establishment of an industrial solar facility around my home. I fully appreciate the importance of renewable energy, but I believe it is crucial to consider the potential impact on the quality of life of residents, including my family. One major concern is the potential disruption to our daily lives due to the construction and ongoing operation of solar noise, dust, and increased traffic during the installation phase would create an environment that is not conducive to the peaceful and serene living we currently enjoy in our neighborhood. Furthermore, the visual impact of extensive solar panels may significantly affect the aesthetics of our surroundings. Our home is not just a structure, it is part of a community where families have chosen to reside for its natural beauty and tranquility. The introduction of large-scale solar farms may compromise the visual harmony we value. Additionally, I worry about the potential impact on property values. Homeownership is a significant investment for many families, and any development that may negatively affect property values could have long-lasting consequences for homeowners like myself. I kindly request that the town board thoroughly assess the potential impacts on residents' quality of life, including the noise levels, visual aesthetics, and any potential decrease in property values. I do not believe that the town board has done its due diligence in assessing the risks and hazards with allowing a tier 3 solar facility to be built in our town, engaging in transparent communication with residents and exploring alternative locations is essential in making an informed decision. We are seeing and learning from other communities that have added solar farms in their town and the consequences they are facing, including a fire that took place in Chalmont, New York in late July, where residents within 1 mile of the solar farm had to shelter in place for over 24 hours, and residents as far as 6 miles away were affected by the smoke and smell. Imagine being a mere 100 feet on 3 sides of your residence. I appreciate your attention to this matter and your dedication to balancing the need for renewable energy with the well-being of the community, but I have to ask you all, does it seem ethically and morally sound to surround a family with children with a tier 3 industrial solar facility? Collaboratively, I believe we can find a solution that respects both environmental sustainability and the quality of life for residents while also respecting the town values and the values of the residents of this community. Thank you for your time and consideration. I apologize for having my comments broken up. There was a character limit for each quote. And she has, so Heritage Hill has to abide to a noise level in the 50 decibel range, but in my own home have to be subject to 78 decibels. Question mark.
Heritage Hill has a 65 decibel, first of all, range. And secondly, the fire again was a battery. It was not. So it's really important that people are accurate about information because otherwise it's misleading.
There's one more on Facebook. It's very short.
Okay, that's okay. You read that so fast. It probably would have been over 5 minutes if she came and read it.
I appreciate that. This is from Daniel Miller. addressed. I appreciate
It's on number 4 road.
I appreciate the hard work and dedication of our town board. Thank you for the hours you dedicate to looking out for the best interest of how to spend our taxpayer dollars. I follow all the board meetings closely. I love this town and I was disappointed to hear the solar panel discussion again. The solar panel projects don't belong in our community. Thank you.
Okay, and on that note, is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
No, we got executive session.
Okay.
Sorry, Bill.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. If you guys are gonna stay, could you sit? So, because we gotta go back into session. You don't have to stay, but. So I would make a motion to return to regular session. Second. Okay, as a result of our discussions in executive session, what? Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Opposed, motion carried. Sorry, guys. Oh, tired. Okay, so we need to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the engagement letter with Harris Beach for litigation at $300 an hour.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried, and I think that concludes our business for the night. So I would also make a reserve of this. Second, all those in favor? Adjourned.
Really sorry, guys, for being old.